Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports. I'm your host, Coach Kevin Bull Jones, and today's show we're going to talk about part two of the college football season, which is beginning this spring. So if you like the video, come on and share, okay? Because we're going to have a great conversation about college football as we begin the second phase of it. And who better to talk about it with than a dear friend of mine, as well as the head football coach at William & Mary, Mike London. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, Bull. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, it is great to be alive and well and moving around. And I think about you all the time. All the times we talked about how you doing up there and how I'm doing down here. But now you're about to get really hot and busy because now things crank up for you. And over a year it's been since you've had the chance to play football. Tell us about what you're going through with that, with your staff and your program.
Yeah, it's been obviously we're in some unprecedented times where, the pandemic, it started out kind of with the whole social justice issues, the pandemic and, dealing with the student athletes and how they have to adjust to the new normal, the adjusting, being creative, adaptive, all those things. And then being faced with a pandemic that literally has taken, as we know, thousands of lives. And, trying to play a season or trying to create some sort of normalcy for student athletes and their experience. They sometimes we get caught up in the identity being only what they can do with a ball or a basket. But at the same time, they're more than just an athlete. They're human beings. And so having to adjust and adapt to who they are as individuals, trying to get their sport ready, trying to get them prepared mentally, physically, emotionally. We're in school now, so the academic elements of it are unlike in an August camp leading up into your preseason. Now our camp is basically right now dealing with the school as it's in session. And so it's been challenging, but at the same time, the level and the accomplishment of the word resilient has been something that I've marveled at these student athletes having to deal with. So very proud of them and trying to get ready, as you said, to get into this spring season to be able to play as FCS football has decided to do.
And with that being said, of course, I shared with you in the fall what it was like for me. I needed somebody to lean on when we took a hit and we were out for, a couple of weeks and we couldn't play because of quarantine to start off our season. That was the most gut-wrenching time I've ever had in football because that was at the start of the season and we had to wait, 2 weeks to play because of a quarantine. But more importantly than that, the build-up to play, then to sit, and then to regenerate, it was amazing. So I really needed you in there in that time. And it was funny because in the conversation we had, we shared some of the same things we're dealing with the new normal. Share that with us and the viewers, because as head coach of a FCS program, a lot of times we need to hear more from, what it did, what it entangles you as far as everything that encompasses what you got to do, because when it's all said and done, you are the leader of the program and they have to, these kids are looking at you on how you react to everything going on.
Sure. And I remember those opportunities to talk to you. I had to tell you your favorite bedtime story so you could go to sleep on the phone so you could be all right. So the crazy thing, Bull, is I ended up contracting COVID myself, and your perception, your perspective, and your reality as you know it, changes. It changes the whole paradigm. And you know that when you first get that call from your team doctor that that you tested positive, then obviously your mind wanders and you start thinking about what's going on globally, nationally, the issues that people were having. And I was blessed enough to not have experienced symptoms that others have had, because it's taken some loved ones away from us, as we see. So the second half of dealing with being told that you have COVID is also dealing with the reality of what is important. Faith, family, and football has always been that to me. Relationships, still calling you my little brother and things like that. It's important that those relationships still stay intact and even more be expressed by us as coaches, players. And then the latter part of it is, okay, so thank God that I'm not affected by it. So what can I do to impact further the lives of young men that are going through the pandemic, their families, their friends, their families' friends, and things like that. So, we had to deal with the personal mental health, wellness aspect of it, because that is real. It's going on right now. We had to deal with we adopted a new phrase, so what, now what? So things have happened, they happen to you. What are we going to do about it? We got to find solutions. And so being adaptive, creative, all those type of things, be innovative, become the new normal of creating a sense of, listen, we may practice at a certain time today because we have the whole squad. Well, all one person has to do is prove positive, and then the contact tracing will affect 3, 4, 5, 6, a dozen others. And so, that aspect of having to adapt and adjust and deal with what the new normal is, or being prepared for that, means that the players had to be all in. I mean, we're all in right now. I mean, my second team corner might end up being my, emergency go in the game wide receiver to finish the game.
Oh, wow.
That's just kind of the mindset, because, I've had the opportunity to talk to my FBS friends that were coaching. I think only 2 of the FBS teams did not eventually play, and then how they handled things, how they did contact tracing, how they practiced, how they met, how they traveled, there's so many different things you think about that you have to take in consideration because of what's going on with the pandemic. So it allowed a fresh perspective and a perception and a reality of how you're going to get the players mentally and emotionally ready, get them physically ready, because we've been on a pause for a while, and now FCS is getting ready to go into a season. And so all those things have just a culmination of best practices, your medical advice from the CDC, your local governments. Are your hospitals full to bed capacity? Right. There's so many things you normally wouldn't think about that you had to think about in planning and moving forward.
Well, definitely 2 points that I want you to touch on for me. One is your coaching staff and how you dealt with them going through this past fall and now about to get ready for the season. Because I know for me, it was, unbelievable watching, us as high school coaches. We don't have contact tracing. We don't have that. So we're kind of in the primitive stages where kid shows up at practice and he's good to practice. He's ready to rock and roll, and he goes. And unfortunately, if there's just one kid that goes down, the whole program is shut down for 2 weeks. And that happened a lot in the Metro Atlanta area. Happened a lot in Georgia, and of course all across the nation. But that's all we had. And then the second point, after talking about the coaches, how you deal with them, your family, and how, especially even when you had your time, you had to deal with it in the fall. How did that whole thing materialize for you, and let the viewers know what you had to go through?
Sure. And obviously the resources are number one in terms of what you can do and how much of a response that you can have. And obviously, high school and how you're dealing with the contact tracing part of it, the testing part of it, the protocols. It's challenging. Even for us, it was challenging. As far as the coaching part of it, what we had to come up with was a contingency plan. If I tested positive, then the associate head coach and then would become the head coach. Well, what happened if he became positive? Then, or a coordinator became positive, or a guy that's in charge of recruiting. So what I had to do is designate different liaison areas with maybe another offensive coach that might be, might handle recruiting. We have a recruiting coordinator on defense, but maybe an offensive coach. Hey, if this guy goes down, then you're going to have to be able to handle recruiting. And so we did a lot of that with the training room liaison or the equipment liaison coaches, and just had to come up with a plan that if something happened to us, then there was a way to transition into still running the program. As far as my family, my wife Regina, she was great. I mean, because I tested positive, her and my son Corbin, who were here at the time, they had to self isolate. I mean, they had to quarantine, and I remember, I was sleeping up in my daughter's bedroom upstairs. I wanted to stay away from from the rest of the family, and I'm sleeping, and I look up, and over my shoulder, she's got a poster of Justin Bieber and Lil Wayne. I'm like, I got to get out of this room. So I got to get myself healthy, because that probably was the driving force of me getting back. Was like every time I woke up, I look on the wall and I see those two pictures. So, but it's the impact and the domino effect.
Yeah.
It touches so many people, and I say that I'm trying to laugh at a moment that was tough, but at the same time, I understand the gravity of the situation. Wearing masks, social distancing, hand sanitizing, those type of things are critically important. And that's even if you don't have, the resources to test PCR tests and rapid tests. So just practicing safe methods, best practice methods. It's not about you. It's about the people that you'll be around. And I think that's the biggest story. We've gotten that. It's gone nationally. It's gone globally. And I know even down in your area, I have 3 aunts that live down, in your area, and we talk all the time. So it is challenging, but at the same time, it is the new normal and the expectation of us seeing this thing through.
Absolutely. And likewise in that fall time. And that's why, I was calling you, because I as a coach, you're watching everything happen around the world. And then sometimes there is this kind of like, well, it doesn't really apply to me, but then it does apply to you, and the season starts. And then it's always good to be able to talk to people that kind of go through what you're going through. I know down here in the Metro Atlanta area, and I even did it with you when I just left some messages. Hey, I just want to hear your voice. Make sure you're okay. I don't have a lot to say, but this is a little brother to big brother check. That's what we, do a lot of down here, just to check on everybody, see if everybody's okay.
Yeah,
that was very powerful.
You're right. Bull, iron sharpens iron, so as one man sharpens another. And when you collide, when you touch two swords, there's a contact that's made, and with that contact means relationships. And very much appreciative of you calling, people, family members calling. It's important that we now call on others and check on them to see how they're doing. There was a time in the last 4 or 5 months there was a question: was there enough empathy that people had for each other, socially, politically, going through the pandemic, but having to say, listen, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. And it's important to stay in contact and reach out to people so they know that we're thinking about them.
Absolutely. Now let's talk some football here. Here's a question that I know this is the best question you have ever had from any /media /interview questionnaire person ever in the history of all your years of coaching. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay it on you. So be ready. With everything, I know no one's asked this question because we've never been through a pandemic. So I'm gonna bring it to you now. How do you talk about, and what approach can you use to talk about the upcoming season, when not only did you have a fall season, not only did you have a summer workout session as far as getting ready in August 4 season, but you also didn't have a spring practice. It's been over a year since your players have touched a football in a legal game. So when the reporters and the big time folks come and want to sit down and put a mic in your face and ask you about your prognostications of where you think you are as a team, where do you pull from? Because I would like to know, and I know a million other people watching today want to know, where do you pull your strength from on those answers?
Well, part of it is when I first said the criteria, or not the team standards, but how I hope that I conduct my life is when I say faith, family, and football being the priorities. And so obviously, being a person of faith and having gone through, as being a police officer, gun being pulled, trigger pulled, not going off. being a bone marrow donor, saving my daughter's life as a perfect match when the doctor said the odds of a parent being a match were 10,000 to 1. So having those aspects happen in your life, and then confronted with another situation that it seems that the odds are impossible. Well, with him, all things are possible.
Amen.
And so when we talk about that, I'm a glass half filled person, and talk about when we can, and not just, well, what if, so we know what the world is full of. It's full of people that will always tell you can't, and what if this doesn't work. But there's got to be, and I believe there's a group of individuals that said, look at the possibilities of doing something, creating a new normal, even though it's challenging. So, and that's how I operate, Bull. You've known me for a long time, and like I said, very blessed to have been a head football coach, at 4 different places, and being coaching the NFL, and just having a family of kids that I'm very proud of that are doing things, and having friends like you who over the years we still stay in contact. So it's a cumulative effect of just how that being optimistically positive is a kind of culture that I want to try to create, because everybody knows of the negative, and people will tell you of the negative, and people are in the media and sometimes socially, you want to be first to get things out than first to get things right. And so, again, you go back to trying to create that culture of that you surround yourself with good people, and you concentrate on the positive things, and know that negative is there, but I'm concentrating on the positive.
Well, the season's about to start. Break down for us, if you will, how this season is going to play out, as far as how many games are you all going to, is it still going to be a conference deal? How is the playoffs? Give us the outline of where this thing is going to go for the viewers, so they can prepare themselves for part 2 of the college football season.
Sure. So in the FCS, conferences, the different conferences have made up their in-season scheduling. Some conferences have said, we're just playing conference games. Okay. Others have said, we're going to allow ourselves to play maybe 1 or 2 additional opponents, outside of the conference games. Particularly in the CAA, the Colonial Athletic Association, which we're a part of, they've divided the conference up into 2 different groups, a southern tier and a northern tier. And the southern tier is us, Elon, Richmond, and James Madison. And in the northern tier, there are other teams from Delaware, Villanova on up. Townsend opted out of playing this year. So what we're going to do, because it's just the 4 of us, is we're going to play each other twice, home and away, with no bye games, with the consideration of no overnight stay or no airplane travel. In the northern group, they're going to play each other once, because there's more teams up in the northern group, but they're going to play each other once. So the CAA for us is, in the southern group, we're playing each other twice, Elon, Richmond, James Madison. In the northern group, they're playing each other once. And then, the NCAA or the FCS playoffs are still very much in play. Conference champion, playoff bids, extended out to those with satisfied records and criteria for moving on into the playoffs. And so it's something that, commissioners, athletic directors, presidents of the universities have said, if we can do this in a safe manner, let's do this. But safety above all else, particularly at William & Mary, safety above all else. And if it can be done, let's do it. But obviously, we're hoping that we have a chance to do that, and we'll see. So we're cautiously optimistic.
Well, I definitely know when everything was getting canceled, we all assumed that schools assumed that we'd be in a better predicament as far as the virus is concerned when those adjustments were made. But then we get to this point, we have variants that are out there crawling all over the place. So my prayers are with you and with everybody that's dealing with coaching college football, still playing and trying to make great on the season for these kids that, watching them go through what they're going through, all these ups and downs. Real quick, I want you to elaborate on how does recruiting, this whole thing with seniors, current players, playing in NCAA, them being allowed to have an extra year, how has it affected you on your level? I've heard some things from other coaches, but I know as a high school coach, the kids are looking around. They don't think they have a place to go. Share with us your thoughts on where you think this whole recruiting is going?
Sure, it's been severely impacted. I got to tell you the truth. I mean, obviously, leadership wanted to make sure that the student athletes that were impacted, college student athletes that were impacted, had another opportunity to play or experience a season. And in doing that, they've created the opportunity for them to come back next year. Have an additional year of eligibility. Well, in doing that, then you're only allowed a certain number of scholarships and slots and spots on your team. So schools had to make the decision of, well, do you sign? Say I had 16 slots in terms of offering high school student athletes for the 2021 class. With this new ruling that came out, I had to decide how many of my seniors currently on my team was I going to bring back, and how many high school seniors was I going to sign. So we ended up signing 7 high school seniors that are going to matriculate, and I kept the rest for our current seniors who have another opportunity to come back and play. And I held 1 or 2, maybe perhaps for a young man that's in the transfer portal or things like that. So the impacted person is definitely that high school young person, 2021, perhaps maybe even 2022, because of the new rules by the NCAA. This allows these current seniors, 5th-year guys, to come back for an additional year.
That has been the Achilles heel, and it's been a soft spot, painful spot down here in Georgia, because so many kids now, and even your JUCOs are filling up, and it's just crazy. And on a personal note, I have a nephew who's been part of the JUCO baseball system, and they didn't even have a minor league season. So a lot of those kids go JUCO, junior college, and then they get signed to the major leagues from there. But it's been painful to watch this because there was no minor league baseball, and now it's going to be a few programs out there. So it's just amazing, and I needed for you to share with parents that are watching this show, because it is a trickle down effect, and the hurtful part of it, Mike, is watching some kids become dejected inside. They don't want to even try to play football anymore after they leave high school. And I've had several conversations with players as recently as this morning that said it's amazing, the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And
some have talked about reclassifying, and that's one way, but again, the unintended consequences of all this is the impact it has on the 21s and perhaps the 22s, that are coming out. No camps, so coaches couldn't go out on the road. We couldn't have camps on our campuses. I know there's coaches that are out there trying to put these combines together via film and things like that. But there's nothing like verification when a college coach can put his eyes on someone and time them himself and put them through their drills. So my hat goes off to coaches that are trying to create those combines. But at the same time, a lot of times you trust what you can verify. If a kid's on your campus and you can talk to him about his football aptitude, IQ, when it comes to playing that position. So, but again, there's my hat goes off to coaches that are trying to create something for young people to show colleges that, hey, listen, please evaluate, and perhaps maybe this is good enough for you to make a decision on me.
I pray that we come to the perfect impasse with this situation, because I'm certainly catching it on this end. My last thoughts, I could not leave this program without talking about last night. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, and they beat a very good Kansas City Chiefs team. Bruce Arians and his staff, all of his coordinating positions were people of color, as well as he has two women full-time coaches on his staff. And that beautiful embodiment of coaches getting the job done. And that's really what stood out to me. Everybody working towards the common goal, and watching what's going on now in the NFL and coaching positions. You've been in the NFL. You've been a coordinator at a Division I program, Power 5. You've been head coach, national champion head coach at FCS level. And also you've been head coach at a HBCU. So you have ran the whole gamut, along with several stops at other places. You've done every part of that. Where are we going to be on this as far as what you think is going to happen? What could possibly happen to show an example of people getting opportunities to be head coaches at that level?
Sure. Obviously, you look at the glaring, you look at the issues that need to be addressed that a guy like Eric Bieniemy or just Brian Leftwich. I mean, there's so many guys, so many different coaches that coaches of color that have demonstrated performance, on the field and what they do for their programs or their organizations. And we continue to keep putting light on that about those opportunities. I understand people want the best coaches, the best the best representatives, but these guys have demonstrated that with their, with what they've done on field and all that. So I've always said that when I was growing up and coaching, I was looking at like the Tony Dungy's of the world, Tyrone Willingham, late John Chaney, God rest his soul, John Thompson, and guys that stood out and spoke about opportunities, for coaches of color. And what I find myself in being blessed with having been, like I said, a head coach at an FBS school, an FCS school, an HBCU school that I learned a lot from, is now find myself in a position to say it's time for, someone else can step up on my shoulders, because I try to step on their shoulders and lift myself up to see what I could be, the possibilities. And I've experienced that. And so now doing that with younger coaches and, talking on shows like this, thank you for bringing that, that question up, because it is something that's got to be continued to be talked about, acted on, fostered with relationships with the hiring processes, interviewing, just all those different things. And so I'm an advocate for that, and will continue to be that as we continue to go through this next phase of coaches' seasons ending and the turnover.
Absolutely. And I'd like your final thoughts on the college football season you're about to embark on, William and Mary football team. I know it's going to be exciting. Your final thoughts on where you all want to take this season, in spite of everything that's been going on around us, the focus of where your football program is ready to go now.
Well, the big thing is the ability for them to be competitive, to be out on the field, to do the thing that they've been training their whole Pop Warner League all the way up until, right before they said, we're shutting things down, and how to readjust that and still help them to keep that desire and that passion, knowing that life's arrows and things all around them are still affecting them. They'll try to create that space, that sense of normalcy that will allow them to play and compete and have some sense of, okay, this is what it feels like. And they understand the challenges. We've been doing that for now, like you said, for a while. But and we're going to do it safe. And by the grace of God, the vaccines and all the things that are going on, that starts to integrate itself into the new normal, and we're back to an opportunity to experience a 21 fall season that may have promise to it.
Well, on one final note, I'd like to definitely say, when you and I were talking, when I was playing and you were elevating your honeydew list, and I'm sure our wives are listening, and just want Regina to know that your honeydew list will change now that the season is starting. So that's a good thing for you, quite naturally, right?
It is. And, just call me anytime you want me to put you back to sleep again on the phone, man, by telling your favorite story and stuff like that. Because I can see you with your thumb in your mouth and your beak and stuff like that. Because all I heard on the phone was just snoring after about 10 minutes out.
Hey, I love you, brother. I appreciate you taking time to spend time to talk some football with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And to your listening audience, this is a great man right here. And I hope that, Kev, that you and the guys are successful in what you do, and just keep it up. Keep it going.
Thank you so much. And if you all enjoyed the show, thank you so much for joining us this evening for 100 yards of sports, football sports talk. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.